Breaking news today. Explosive allegations are shaking Washington. Tulsi Gabbard has accused Barack Obama and top officials of using intelligence agencies to undermine President Trump over several years. Why has the media remained silent on this issue?
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
Fox News reports that Tulsi Gabbard, former Democrat and current director of national intelligence, has accused Barack Obama and his top officials of orchestrating what she describes as a treasonous conspiracy. This conspiracy allegedly aimed to undermine President Trump's victory by using intelligence agencies as political tools. Gabbard's allegations raise a critical question. What happens when those in power treat democracy as merely a slogan rather than a guiding principle? This incident highlights a significant power struggle in Washington, pitting unelected bureaucrats against voters. Why are most major networks not covering this? Perhaps it's because it sheds light on a real threat to our republic. Hold on to your hats.
President Obama after DNI Tulsi Gabbard sent a criminal referral to the DOJ related to her claims that Obama-era officials manufactured and politicized intelligence to create the Russia collusion narrative in 2016.
The allegations we're discussing are new. When the sitting director of national intelligence releases declassified documents and issues a criminal referral to the Department of Justice, accusing former top officials of a years-long effort to undermine a duly elected president, it confirms suspicions many Americans have harbored. There's a deep-seated corruption within the intelligence community and political establishment that requires serious accountability. The evidence exposes a stark reversal in intelligence assessments. Initially, agencies found no intent or capability by Russia to influence the election outcome. Within days, under orders from the top echelons of the prior administration, these findings were discarded and replaced with a narrative that fueled years of investigations, media frenzy, and political strife. This goes beyond mere bureaucratic squabbles. It represents a government's weaponization against its political adversaries, and by extension, the American populace. The bravery required to expose such misconduct is immense. Whistleblowers, appalled by their observations, are now coming forward seeking justice. This pursuit of transparency and adherence to the rule of law is what Americans rightfully expect and have been demanding. The dismissive responses from officials implicated in these actions only highlight the urgency for a complete, unbiased investigation. It's concerning that much of the mainstream media either overlooks this story or dismisses it as a mere distraction. The reluctance of many outlets to report on these credible allegations of intelligence manipulation suggests a significant media bias, raising doubts about their commitment to journalistic integrity across political lines. This issue goes beyond partisan politics. It touches on the core integrity of our democratic institutions and the peril of a government apparatus capable of turning against its citizens. The similarities with past intelligence missteps, which justified catastrophic foreign policies, are striking. Americans are justified in their skepticism towards experts and globalists whose agendas have led to endless conflicts and compromised our national sovereignty. The current administration's backing of this investigation marks a critical shift. For too long, political elites and entrenched bureaucrats have acted with impunity. Now, with the Department of Justice moving forward on these referrals, we stand on the brink of real accountability. This moment could fundamentally alter the relationship between the American people and their government, rebuilding trust and affirming that no one, no matter their power, is beyond the law.
Just one day later, the editor of that assessment canceled the brief, quote, based on new guidance. By December 9th, 2016, Obama convened National Security Council principals and ordered a new assessment. And on January 6, 2017, the new unclassified assessment was released. Obama's office today firing back, issuing the following statement. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction.
The sudden cancellation of a scheduled intelligence briefing, followed by the swift introduction of new guidelines and a meeting of National Security Council principals, exemplifies how political interference can overshadow professional judgment. This series of events, culminating in a new, unclassified evaluation released less than a month later, raises significant concerns about the integrity of the process and the motivations behind such a sudden change. When a single meeting can overturn the consensus of multiple intelligence agencies, it's reasonable for Americans to wonder if the national security apparatus is being used as a political tool rather than a protective shield for the republic. The previous administration's dismissal of these concerns as mere distractions highlights a consistent pattern of evasion and deflection in their approach to accountability. Rather than addressing the substance of the allegations, they chose to ridicule and delegitimize critics, relying on the media to overshadow calls for transparency. This tactic is not new. It has been employed repeatedly to justify ill-advised foreign interventions and to suppress dissent against policies that compromise American sovereignty and involve the nation in ongoing foreign conflicts. The partisan response to this issue is sharply divided. Democrats and their media allies have been quick to defend the former administration, while Republicans and independent voices are calling for genuine answers and reforms. The courage of whistleblowers who've risked their careers to come forward marks a potential turning point. Their testimony could expose long-standing interests that have operated without consequence. Policy changes are underway. The current administration's endorsement of a thorough investigation marks a departure from the previous bipartisan agreement that shielded the intelligence community from significant oversight. Continued momentum could lead to reforms that reinforce constitutional checks and balances, curb the power of unaccountable agencies, and reaffirm the authority of elected officials over bureaucrats. This incident is part of a broader trend of public disillusionment with elite institutions, whether intelligence agencies, the media, or the political establishment. Americans are increasingly distrustful of narratives promoted by those who have repeatedly let the country down, whether by manipulating intelligence for foreign wars or by interfering in domestic politics for personal gain. The stakes are high as the nation nears another election cycle, with trust in government and the integrity of democratic processes at risk. Ignoring these revelations will only perpetuate the cycle of abuse, leaving Americans at the mercy of a political class that is accountable to no one. The path forward requires a relentless pursuit of the truth, robust oversight, and a recommitment to the principles that have defined this nation's greatness.
So this is the thing that I think people should pay attention to, is neither the message from President Obama's office, neither the statements coming from Democrats in Congress today and their friends in the propaganda media. None of them are addressing this fact that there was a shift, a 180-degree shift from the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election to the one that President Obama directed be produced after Donald Trump won the election, that completely contradicted those assessments that had come previously. The second thing I want to address that's very important, Laura, is that you in the clip that you played, you saw John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey stated with high confidence this January intelligence community assessment that they drafted at the direction of President Obama.
The glaring omission here is the refusal of Democratic leaders and their media allies to address the documented reversal in intelligence assessments. This abrupt shift from consistent findings that Russia lacked the intent or capability to influence the election to a sudden narrative of interference was not a natural evolution of intelligence but a directive imposed from the highest levels of the previous administration. This move, far from being a mere bureaucratic footnote, undermined public trust and paved the way for years of divisive investigations and media hysteria. Fox News deserves credit for its complete coverage of these developments. Their segments have consistently highlighted the substance of the declassified documents, giving viewers access to the actual evidence rather than relying solely on partisan commentary. By airing extended interviews with whistleblowers and experts, Fox has provided a platform for voices that mainstream outlets have largely ignored. The network's use of on-screen graphics and direct document excerpts has strengthened the case for transparency, allowing the audience to see the facts for themselves. There's room for improvement in Fox's reporting. At times, the coverage leans heavily on Republican voices and administration officials, which, while understandable given the gravity of the allegations, risks reinforcing the perception of partisanship. Incorporating more independent legal analysts or intelligence professionals, especially those with no direct ties to the current administration, would bolster the network's claim to objectivity and preempt critics who dismiss the story as mere political theater. The contrast with other major networks is stark. ABC and NBC have completely sidestepped the story, while CBS addressed it only to amplify Democratic dismissals. This selective coverage not only deprives the public of critical information, but also exposes the deep media bias that has plagued political reporting for years. When only one side of a historic controversy is presented, viewers are left with a distorted understanding of events, eroding faith in the press as an institution. At the heart of the issue is the weaponization of government agencies for political ends. The use of discredited sources like the Steele dossier, knowingly included in the final intelligence evaluation, exposes a willingness to sacrifice professional standards for partisan advantage. This is precisely the sort of abuse that has fueled public disillusionment with so-called experts and globalists who have repeatedly dragged the country into unnecessary conflicts abroad, all while insulating themselves from accountability. The emergence of whistleblowers, intelligence professionals, who could no longer stomach the politicization of their work, signals a potential turning point. Their willingness to come forward, despite personal risk, speaks to the gravity of what transpired and the urgent need for genuine accountability. The ongoing criminal referral to the Department of Justice, with indictments on the table for former officials, marks a long overdue reckoning for those who believe they could operate above the law. This is not about relitigating old elections or scoring partisan points. It is about restoring the balance of power between the people and the unelected bureaucrats who have too often acted as a law unto themselves. The American public deserves a government that serves its interests, not one that manipulates intelligence to preserve the privileges of a political class. As this investigation unfolds, the demand for transparency and reform will only grow louder.
They used intelligence that some of these intelligence community professionals rejected previously because of the lack of credibility and the lack of the ability to vet with any kind of confidence whether or not that information or intelligence was accurate and could be used for an assessment. There's a long laundry list of facts and intelligence reporting that directly contradict the statement coming from President Obama's office and those who are trying to deflect away from what actually happened, which was after Donald Trump was elected, led by President Obama, there was an effort to create a document that would serve as a foundation for what would be a years-long coup against President Trump, therefore trying to subvert the will of the American people who sent him to the White House in 2016.
Well, it's amazing that you are now releasing all of this. And Tulsi, I have to tell you, for those of us who lived through it, thank you. I think it's great that we're getting this information out.
We are witnessing the unraveling of a long-standing pattern where unelected bureaucrats and entrenched intelligence officials have operated without public accountability, often harming the American people. The revival of previously dismissed intelligence to justify sweeping investigations highlights the vulnerability of our institutions when political motives surpass professional standards. This situation is more than political intrigue. It's a case study in the dangers of centralized power and the unchecked influence of the so-called expert class. The economic impact of these actions is tangible. Weaponizing the intelligence community for partisan purposes shakes market confidence and creates instability, affecting every economic sector. Years of uncertainty and continuous investigations have hindered business investment, job creation, and consumer confidence. Small business owners face a climate of suspicion and unpredictability, compounded by inflation and regulatory challenges, leading to higher costs and fewer opportunities for families, reinforcing the belief that the system is rigged against ordinary Americans. The financial sector has experienced significant ripple effects. As government agencies lose credibility, investors pull back, capital becomes scarce, and innovation stalls. This situation affects not just Wall Street but Main Street too. Political manipulation of intelligence erodes trust, undermining the dollar's value and weakening our financial markets, which is reflected in households' retirement accounts and the rising cost of goods and services. Agriculture and manufacturing are also suffering. Trade negotiations and international partnerships depend on the perception that the United States operates with integrity and transparency. When our intelligence agencies are seen as embroiled in domestic political conflicts, it weakens our bargaining position and invites retaliation, leading to higher grocery prices, fewer export opportunities for American farmers, and more jobs relocating overseas. The contrast between the current administration's commitment to transparency and the previous administration's pattern of secrecy is stark. The recent declassification of documents, long demanded by the public, signals a return to constitutional principles and respect for the rule of law. This move not only restores faith in government, but also sets the stage for renewed economic growth and stability. And by exposing past abuses, we can begin to rebuild trust in our institution, ensuring that future generations inherit a country where the government serves the people, not the other way around. The American people deserve to know how their government operates, especially regarding issues that impact their livelihoods and freedoms. The courage of those challenging the status quo and demanding accountability is vital. As more whistleblowers come forward and more facts are exposed, it becomes clear that the era of unaccountable decision-making is ending. The mainstream media's reluctance to cover these developments reinforces the perception that powerful interests are keeping the public uninformed. When only one network is willing to discuss these revelations, it's no surprise that trust in the press is at an all-time low. Americans have every right to demand answers, not just for political reasons, but for the health of our democracy and the security of their financial futures. The parallels to past intelligence failures that led to costly foreign conflicts are striking. Time and again, manipulated intelligence and globalist ambitions have drawn our nation into unnecessary conflicts, draining our resources and endangering American lives, all while enriching a select few. Supporting reforms that limit the power of unelected officials, restore checks and balances, and prioritize American families is crucial. As this investigation progresses, the focus must remain on restoring integrity to our institutions and holding those who abuse their power accountable. Only then can we foster an environment where economic growth is possible, families can plan their futures with confidence, and the government is truly accountable to the people it serves. This leaves us with so many things to consider. Here we are, after years of dismissing suspicions about the intelligence community and the so-called deep state as mere conspiracy theories. Now, Democrat Tulsi Gabbard has confirmed what many have long suspected. Officials from Barack Obama's era worked behind the scenes to undermine the will of the voters and the legitimacy of President Trump's administration. This isn't democracy, it's the operation of unaccountable power, a machine that the Biden-Harris White House has continued to protect. The American people deserve answers, not lectures. If we allow unelected bureaucrats to decide who governs, then what is the purpose of our elections? The time for silence is past. We must demand accountability now, or we might never have the opportunity again. Leave your comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's keep holding them accountable. Good day, good evening, and good night.